The first signal came 300 years ago. It arrived on a cold December night when a radio telescope in New Mexico picked up something that was clearly not natural. The signal contained mathematics, star maps, and a message that took linguists 15 years to decode. When they finally understood it, the world changed forever. The message was simple. It said that Earth had been discovered by something called the Galactic Council, a governing body of 12 advanced alien civilizations that ruled the known galaxy. The Council offered humanity a choice: join them as a member species or remain isolated and unprotected. The message promised great technology, access to the stars, and a place in the galactic community. But there was something wrong with the offer. Hidden in the transmission, buried in frequencies that the aliens probably thought humans could not detect, was another conversation. It was the council members talking among themselves about Earth. They did not speak of partnership or friendship. They spoke of resources. They spoke of labor. They spoke of a primitive species that could be useful if properly controlled. The world governments held secret meetings that lasted for months. Scientists, military leaders, and politicians argued about what to do. Some wanted to respond, to try diplomacy. Others wanted to prepare for war. In the end, they chose a third option that no one expected. Earth decided to stay silent. For 300 years, humanity received message after message from the Council. The offers became demands. The demands became threats. Still, Earth never sent a single reply. The governments of the world had agreed that silence was their greatest weapon. Let the aliens wonder. Let them guess. Let them underestimate the quiet little planet at the edge of the galaxy. Admiral Daniel Hayes stood at the observation window of Station Vigil, a massive military installation hidden on the dark side of the moon. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes, a man who had spent his entire life preparing for a war he hoped would never come. Through the thick glass, he could see the stars stretching out forever, beautiful and cold. Behind him, the command center hummed with activity. Dozens of officers monitored screens that tracked everything in the solar system, from asteroid movements to energy signatures. This was the heart of the United Earth Defense Fleet, a military force that officially did not exist. To the rest of the galaxy, Earth was still a primitive world that had not even developed basic space travel. The truth was very different. Commander Morgan walked up beside the Admiral. She was younger than him by 20 years, with short dark hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She carried a tablet in her hands, and her expression told Hayes that the news was not good. "We have a problem," she said. "Long-range sensors picked up a fleet entering the system about 3 hours ago. 12 ships, all military class. They are holding position near Jupiter." Hayes did not turn from the window. "Council ships." "Design," Morgan confirmed. "Probably a scout fleet. They are scanning everything, trying to figure out what we have." "They will not find anything," Hayes said. "Our stealth technology is 3 generations ahead of theirs. To their sensors, Earth looks exactly like it did 300 years ago, a quiet planet with no space capability." Morgan nodded, but her face remained worried. "Sir, intelligence reports say the Council is losing patience. They have been pushing for action against Earth for decades. They see our silence as an insult." Hayes finally turned to face her. "Good. Let them be insulted. Let them be confused. The moment they think they understand us is the moment we lose our advantage." In the days that followed, the Council fleet moved closer. They scanned Earth's moon, never knowing that Station Vigil was hiding just beneath the surface on the other side. They sent probes toward Earth that mysteriously malfunctioned before they could gather any useful data. They broadcast demands for a response on every frequency, but Earth remained silent. On the Council's capital world of Prime, the 12-member species held an emergency session. The High Commander, a cold and calculating creature named Sovereign Al, addressed the assembly. There were tall beings with pale blue skin and 4 arms, and they had led the Council for over 5,000 years. Al's voice was like ice as he spoke. Earth's silence is no longer acceptable, he declared. For 3 centuries, this primitive world has ignored our generous offers. They are either too stupid to understand us or too arrogant to respond. Either way, they must be brought into the council by force. Some of the other species raised concerns. A peaceful race of traders suggested more patience. They who valued knowledge above all else argued that Earth should be studied further before any action was taken. But they had too much power, and Al had made his decision long ago. The vote was unanimous. The Galactic Council authorized a pacification fleet to bring Earth into compliance. 200 warships would be sent to crush any resistance and claim the planet for the Council. The operation was expected to take less than 1 day. Back on Station Vigil, Admiral Hayes received the intelligence report about the Council's decision. He read it carefully, then handed the tablet back to Commander Morgan. "So they finally did it," he said quietly. "They made the mistake we have been waiting for." Morgan looked at him. "Sir." Hayes walked toward the command center, his steps steady and sure. For 300 years, humanity had watched and waited. They had built ships in secret, developed weapons that the galaxy had never seen, and trained soldiers for a war that everyone prayed would never happen. Now that war was coming, and Earth was ready. "Contact Secretary General Torres," Hayes ordered. "Tell him it is time, and Commander, begin waking up the fleet." Morgan felt a chill run down her spine. She had trained for this moment her entire career, but some part of her had never believed it would actually come. "All of them, sir." Hayes nodded. "All of them. The galaxy thinks we are silent because we are weak. They are about to learn the truth." In shipyards hidden beneath the ice of Antarctica, under the deserts of Africa, and in hollowed-out asteroids throughout the solar system, lights began to flicker on. Engines that had slept for decades started to hum. Crews who had trained in secret for their entire lives reported to their stations. Earth was finally ready to speak, and when humanity spoke, the galaxy would listen. Secretary General Torres had not slept in 3 days. He sat in a bunker deep beneath the Swiss Alps, surrounded by screens that showed him everything happening in the solar system. World leaders from every nation attended the meeting through secure channels, their faces grim and determined. This was the moment their grandparents had feared and their great-grandparents had planned for. "The Council fleet will arrive in 18 days, Torres said. 200 warships. According to our intelligence, they expect no resistance. They believe they are coming to claim a primitive world." On one of the screens, a woman with silver hair and glasses spoke up. This was Dr. Laura, the head of the Advanced Research Division, and the person most responsible for humanity's secret weapons. She had spent 40 years working on technology that officially did not exist, and she looked tired but proud. "Let me show you what they will actually find," she said. The main screen changed to show a sleek black warship unlike anything the world had ever seen. It was beautiful in a dangerous way, all sharp angles and smooth surfaces. There were no visible weapons, no obvious engines, nothing that looked familiar. It seemed less like a ship and more like a shadow given solid form. "This is the Defiance," Doctor explained. "The first of our Spectre-class battleships. She carries weapons that can punch through any known shield technology in the galaxy. Her armor can absorb energy attacks and redirect them back at the enemy, and her engines can do something that the Council believes is impossible." She pressed a button, and the ship on the screen simply vanished. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Then it reappeared on the other side of the screen instantly. "Micro-jump capability," continued. "Our ships can make faster-than-light jumps within a battlefield itself. They can appear behind enemy lines, fire, and disappear before the enemy even knows they were there. The Council's ships need minutes to calculate a jump. Ours need less than a second." The world leaders stared in amazement. For 3 centuries, Their governments had poured resources into a secret project that most of them had only heard rumors about. Now they were seeing the results for the first time. Admiral Hayes appeared on another screen speaking from Station Vigil. "We have 50 ships ready for immediate deployment. Another 250 can be activated within a week. Our crews have trained for this in simulations for years. They know their ships, they know their enemy, and they know what is at stake." Tors nodded slowly. "And you believe 50 ships can defeat 200? "I believe 50 ships can destroy 200, Hayes replied. "The Council has never faced an enemy like us. They have spent 10,000 years bullying weaker species into submission. They have forgotten what a real fight looks like. We are going to remind them." The meeting continued for hours as they discussed strategy and logistics. In the end, they agreed on a plan. The first Earth would meet the Council fleet at the edge of the solar system, near Neptune. They would give the aliens one chance to turn back. When the aliens refused, and everyone knew they would refuse, humanity would show the galaxy what 300 years of silent preparation looked like. Captain Cole stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching his crew run through final system checks. He was a calm man with steady hands and a quiet voice, the kind of officer who never raised his voice because he never needed to. His crew trusted him completely, and he had spent his entire adult life earning that trust. "All systems are operational, Captain," reported his first officer, Lieutenant Commander Santos. "Weapons are charged, shields are at full power, we are ready." Cole nodded. "Good, get some rest while you can. Once we engage, things are going to move very fast." The fleet gathered in the darkness between Mars and Jupiter, 50 black ships that barely showed up on any sensors. They moved in perfect formation, silent and deadly, waiting for the enemy to arrive. For the first time in 300 years, humanity was not hiding. They were hunting. When the Council fleet finally arrived at the edge of the solar system, they came with confidence. 200 warships arranged in an attack formation, led by the flagship Eternal Dominion. Admiral On stood on his command deck, looking at the tactical display that showed nothing but empty space between his fleet and Earth. "Begin scanning for defenses," he ordered. "Find whatever primitive weapons they have built and destroy them. This will be finished before the day is over." His sensors swept the solar system, searching for military stations, weapons platforms, or any sign of resistance. They found nothing. On smiled, his thin lips pulling back to reveal rows of sharp teeth. This was going to be even easier than he expected. Then a single transmission cut through every channel, overriding all of the flagship's communication systems. A human voice, calm and cold, speaking in perfect language. "This is Captain Cole of the Earth battleship Defiance. You have entered our solar system without permission. You have come with warships to attack a peaceful world. You were warned by our silence. You should have listened." On froze. No species had ever spoken to the like that. No species had ever dared. "Turn back now," Cole continued, "and you may return to your council alive. Continue forward and you will not return at all. This is your only warning." The Admiral recovered his composure and laughed. "One ship threatens 200. You humans truly are as primitive as we believed. All ships advance. Destroy anything that stands in our way." The Council fleet moved forward, hungry for conquest. They still did not see the human ships hiding in the darkness, waiting for the order to attack. They had no idea that they were flying into a trap that had been 300 years in the making. On the Defiance, Captain Cole watched the enemy fleet approach on his tactical display. He took a slow breath and opened a channel to his fleet. "All ships, this is Defiance Actual, weapons free. Show them what humanity can do." 50 shadows came alive and the galaxy changed forever. The first Council ship died before anyone realized the battle had started. One moment the destroyer Silver Claw was advancing in formation with its fleet. The next moment it exploded from within, torn apart by kinetic rounds that had punched through its shields like they were made of paper. There was no warning. There was no time to react. The ship was simply there, and then it was not. Admiral On stared at his tactical display in confusion. "Report. What happened to the Silver Claw?" "Unknown, Admiral," his sensor officer replied, his voice shaking. "We are detecting no enemy fire, no weapons signatures, nothing on any of our scanners." 2 more ships exploded, then 4 more, then 10. The Council fleet fell into chaos as vessels died all around them without any visible cause. Captains screamed for information over the communication channels. Gunners fired blindly into empty space. Panic spread like a disease. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Cole watched the enemy fleet fall apart with cold satisfaction. His ship had just completed its 4th microjump in 30 seconds, appearing behind the enemy lines, firing a devastating barrage, and vanishing before a single weapon could track them. All across the battlefield, the other human ships were doing the same thing. "Defiance to all ships," Cole ordered. "Switch to attack pattern Delta. Focus fire on their heavy cruisers. Take out their biggest guns first." Lieutenant Commander Santos worked the tactical station with calm precision, coordinating the movements of the entire fleet. On his screens, 50 green triangles danced around 200 red dots, striking and disappearing over and over again. The red dots were vanishing fast. Commander Morgan led the assault squadron, 5 fast attack ships that moved like ghosts through the enemy formation. Her ship, the Phantom, appeared directly above a battlecruiser and unleashed a storm of kinetic rounds into its engine section. The alien ship listed to one side, dead in space, before Morgan's ship jumped away to find its next target. "Scratch 1 battle cruiser," Morgan reported, moving to secondary targets. The finally began to understand what was happening. The human ships were not invisible. They were simply moving too fast to track. Every time the Council gunners tried to aim, their targets were already gone. Every time they fired, they hit nothing but empty space. Admiral On gripped the arms of his command chair so hard that his claws left marks in the metal. This was impossible. No species had this kind of technology. No species moved this fast. These humans were supposed to be primitives, barely able to reach their own moon. How could they be doing this? "All ships, defensive formation," he screamed. "Group together and create overlapping shield coverage. They cannot destroy us if we protect each other." It was a reasonable strategy. It had worked against other enemies in the past, but the humans had planned for this too. Dr. Laura had designed the shield technology on the human ships to do something remarkable. When enemy plasma fire hit the shields, the energy did not simply stop. It was absorbed, stored, and could be released again at double the strength. Now, as the Council ships grouped together and fired desperately at any human ship they could see, they were only making things worse. The Defiance dropped out of jump directly in front of the flagship, shields glowing bright blue from all the absorbed energy. For just a moment, the 2 ships faced each other, close enough that Admiral On could see the human vessel through his observation window. Then the Defiance released all of its stored energy in a single devastating beam that cut through 3 Council ships before disappearing. The alien vessels split apart, their crews never knowing what hit them. "Admiral, we have lost 60 ships," the sensor officer cried out. 70, 80. On watched his tactical display in horror as his fleet was torn apart piece by piece. The battle had been going for less than 15 minutes, and he had already lost nearly half of his forces. The humans had not lost a single ship. On the Defiance, Captain Cole received an update from Santos. "Enemy fleet is breaking formation, sir. Several groups are attempting to retreat. Should we pursue?" "Not yet," Cole replied. "Doctor, activate the suppression field." Across the battlefield, every Council ship suddenly lost power to their faster-than-light drives. The technology had been Doctor's masterpiece, a field that disrupted the specific energy signatures that allowed FTL travel. The alien ships could still move on conventional engines, but they could not escape. They were trapped. Admiral On felt true fear for the first time in his long life. He had commanded fleets against a dozen different species. He had crushed rebellions and conquered worlds. He had never felt helpless before. He felt it now. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from the human flagship," his communications officer reported. On screen, On whispered. Captain Cole's face appeared before him, calm and controlled. There was no anger in the human's eyes, no hatred, just cold determination. "Your fleet is destroyed," Cole said simply. "Your FTL drives are disabled. You cannot fight. You cannot run. This battle is over. Surrender now and your surviving crews will be treated with dignity. Continue to resist and we will finish what we started. You have 60 seconds to decide." On looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. He saw fear in their eyes, something he had never seen before. They were conquerors. They did not know how to be the conquered. But they were also survivors. "All ships," the admiral said slowly, the words tasting like poison in his mouth, "stand down. We surrender." The shooting stopped. The human ships held their positions, weapons still ready but no longer firing. Medical vessels began moving toward the crippled alien ships, ready to help the wounded. The humans treated their prisoners with respect, a concept that confused them greatly. In the end, 147 council ships had been destroyed. 53 had surrendered. The human fleet had suffered only minor damage to a handful of ships. No human lives were lost. Commander Morgan docked her ship with the Defiance and made her way to the bridge. She found Captain Cole still standing at his command station, watching the cleanup operations on the main screen. "It worked," she said quietly. 300 years of waiting and it actually worked." Cole nodded. "This was just the first step. The Council will not accept this defeat. They will send more ships, bigger fleets. They will try to destroy us for what we did here today." "So what do we do?" Cole turned to face her, and for the first time she saw something like hope in his eyes. "We do what we should have done 300 years ago. We go to them. We show them who we really are, and we change everything." He opened a channel to Admiral Hayes, who had been watching the battle from Station Vigil. "Admiral, the enemy fleet is neutralized. Requesting permission to proceed to Phase 2. Hayes's voice came back immediately. "Permission granted, Captain. Take us to Prime. It is time the Council learned the truth about Earth." The first Earth gathered its ships and prepared for the longest jump in human history. They were going to the heart of the Galactic Council itself, and they were going to deliver a message that the galaxy would never forget. Prime was the most heavily defended world in the known galaxy. 3 rings of orbital stations surrounded the planet, each bristling with weapons powerful enough to crack a moon in half. A permanent defense fleet of 500 warships patrolled the system at all times. No enemy had ever come within a light year of the Council's capital. No enemy had ever dared. Then the human fleet arrived. They came out of nowhere, 300 warships appearing in perfect formation directly between the orbital rings and the planet itself. They had somehow jumped past every defense, every sensor, every weapon platform. They hung in space like a dark cloud, silent and patient, waiting. The Council went into panic. Alarms screamed across the planet. Defense fleets scrambled to intercept. The 12-member species leaders rushed to the central chamber, demanding answers that no one had. How had these humans crossed half the galaxy? How had they gotten past the defenses? What did they want? Admiral Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the carrier Ascension, watching the chaos unfold below. He felt no joy in their fear, no satisfaction in their confusion. He only felt tired. 300 years of preparation had led to this moment, and he wanted it to be over. "Admiral, the Council is hailing us," his communications officer reported. They are demanding we identify ourselves and explain our presence." Hayes almost smiled. "Open a channel. Let us introduce ourselves properly." His face appeared on every screen on Prime, in every ship, in every station. The face of a human, a species that the Council had dismissed as primitive animals barely worthy of notice. "This is Admiral Daniel Hayes of the United Earth Defense Fleet," he said, his voice calm and clear. "We are not here to fight. We are here to talk. Your leaders will meet with our delegation in your council chamber within the hour. If any ship attempts to attack us before then, we will respond with overwhelming force. If your leaders refuse to meet with us, we will consider it an act of war. The choice is yours." He cut the transmission and turned to Commander Morgan. "Prepare the shuttle. Get Doctor and our diplomatic envoy. We are going down there." The shuttle descended through the atmosphere of Prime under the watchful eyes of 1,000 weapons that did not fire. The humans had proven what they could do. The Council was not eager to test them again. Admiral Hayes, Commander Morgan, Dr. Laura, and diplomatic envoy Price walked into the Council chamber surrounded by armed guards from a dozen species. The chamber was enormous, a circular room with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from all 12 member species sat in their designated areas, watching the humans with a mix of fear and hatred. Sovereign Al stood at the center of the platform, his 4 arms crossed over his chest. He was the most powerful being in the galaxy, leader of the and head of the Council. He had ruled for over 200 years, and no one had ever him so openly. "You dare come here," he said, his voice cold with rage. "You destroy our fleet. You invade our space. You threaten our. Give me one reason why I should not have you executed where you stand." Price stepped forward. She was a small woman with dark hair and kind eyes, but there was steel in her voice when she spoke. "Because your weapons cannot hurt us, because your fleet cannot stop us, and because we have something to say that you need to hear." She pulled out a small device and activated it. A holographic display appeared in the air above them, showing a transmission that was 300 years old. It was the Council's original message to Earth, the one that had offered membership and partnership. "This is what you sent us," Price said. "This is what you wanted us to believe. A friendly offer from an advanced civilization, welcoming a young species to the galactic community." She pressed another button, and the display changed. Now it showed a different conversation, one that had been hidden in frequencies that the Council thought humans could not detect. It was the Council members discussing Earth, and what they heard made even some of the alien representatives shift uncomfortably in their seats. "The humans are primitive but numerous," said a voice in the recording. "They would make excellent labor stock for our mining operations." "Their biological structure is interesting," added another voice, this one from the representative. "We could harvest their genetic material for our medical research." "Perhaps we should simply sterilize the planet," suggested a third. "They will eventually develop technology and become a threat. Better to eliminate them now while they are weak." The recording continued for several minutes, various species discussing humanity's fate like they were deciding what to do with unwanted animals. Slavery, experimentation, genocide, all options were considered and debated calmly. When the recording ended, the Council chamber was silent. Some representatives looked ashamed, others looked defiant. Al's expression had not changed at all. "So you intercepted our private communications," he said. "So what? The strong rule the weak. This is the way of the galaxy. You were primitives. We could have done whatever we wished with you." "Yes," Price agreed. "You could have, and that is exactly why we stayed silent." She walked slowly around the platform, looking up at the representatives of species that had planned to destroy her people. "We knew what you were from the very beginning. We knew that your offers of friendship were lies. We knew that if we revealed ourselves, you would crush us before we could become a threat. So we hid, we watched, we learned, and we prepared." For 300 years, Doctor added, we studied every piece of technology we could intercept from your communications. We figured out how your ships worked, how your weapons worked, how your societies worked. And then we built something better, not because we wanted to conquer you, but because we wanted to survive. Admiral Hayes stepped forward. You sent a pacification fleet to Earth, 200 ships to enslave or destroy a peaceful world. You made the mistake of attacking us, and now you have seen what happens when you threaten humanity. But we are not here for revenge. We are here to offer you a choice. Al laughed, a harsh and bitter sound. A choice? You come to our world with warships and speak of choices. You are conquerors just like us. Do not pretend otherwise. We had the power to destroy your fleet completely, Commander Morgan said. We let them surrender instead. We treated your wounded. We fed your prisoners. We are not like you. Price raised her hand for silence. Sovereign Al, we know what the Council has done. 17 species have been destroyed by your order over the past 10,000 years. Hundreds more have been enslaved. You have built an empire on fear and cruelty, and you have never faced consequences because no one was strong enough to stop you. She paused, letting her words sink in. That has changed. We are strong enough. We could burn your worlds and scatter your people across the stars, but that is not why we came. Hayes took over. We came because we believe the galaxy can be better than this. We believe that species can work together without one ruling over the others. We believe that the weak deserve protection, not exploitation, and we are willing to give you a chance to be part of that future. For the first time, Al looked uncertain. He had expected threats, demands, ultimatums. He had not expected mercy. What exactly are you proposing? He asked. Price smiled. Something that has never existed before in this galaxy, something fair. The council chamber fell silent as the humans began to explain their vision for a new galactic order. The representatives listened, some with hope, others with suspicion, but all of them knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The silent planet had finally spoken, and the galaxy had no choice but to listen. The negotiations lasted for 3 weeks. Every day, Price returned to the council chamber and presented humanity's demands. Every day, the council representatives argued, threatened, and tried to find some way to regain control. Every day, they failed. The terms were simple but revolutionary. The Galactic Council would dissolve. In its place, a new galactic assembly would form, where every spacefaring species had an equal vote regardless of their military power or economic strength. Slavery would be abolished across all known space. Forced integration of primitive worlds would end immediately. The 17 species that had been destroyed would be remembered with monuments on every council world, a permanent reminder of what happens when power goes unchecked. Sovereign Al fought against every term. He argued that the galaxy needed strong leadership, that without the council, there would be chaos and war. He insisted that some species were naturally superior to others and deserved to rule. He threatened and bargained and pleaded in ways that no leader had ever done before. But he had no leverage. The human fleet hung in orbit above his world, a constant reminder that the old ways were over. One by one, the other council species abandoned him and signed the new agreement. There were first, eager to escape the shadow. The followed, seeing an opportunity for knowledge sharing that the old council had forbidden. Even the closest allies eventually accepted that the galaxy had changed. On the final day, Al stood alone on the platform of the council chamber. The other representatives had already signed their names to the new treaty. Only his signature remained. Why? He asked, looking at Price with something that might have been confusion or despair. You have the power to rule the galaxy. You could take everything the council built and make it your own. Why would you give that up? Price considered the question carefully before answering. 300 years ago, we heard you discussing our fate like we were animals to be bought and sold. We felt the same fear that hundreds of species have felt under your rule. We know what it is like to be powerless, to be at the mercy of beings who see you as less than nothing. She walked closer to him, meeting his eyes without fear. We built our fleet so that we would never feel that way again. But power is not the same as wisdom. If we used our strength to dominate the galaxy, we would become exactly what we fought against. We would prove that you were right about the way the universe works, the strong ruling the weak forever. Dr. Laura spoke next. We chose a different path, not because we are better than you, but because we want to be. We want to prove that the galaxy can work differently, that species can cooperate without one holding a weapon to the others. It will be hard. It might even fail, but at least we will have tried. Al stared at them for a long moment. Then, slowly, he reached out and pressed his mark to the treaty. The Galactic Council, which had ruled the stars for 10,000 years, was officially dissolved. The news spread across the galaxy like a wave. On 100 worlds, species that had lived in fear celebrated in the streets. Former slaves took their first breaths of freedom. Leaders who had bowed to the council for generations stood up straight for the first time. Everything was different now. Humanity did not stay to rule the galaxy. The fleet returned to Earth, leaving only a small diplomatic team to help establish the new assembly. Captain Cole became a legend, his name spoken with respect on worlds that had never heard of Earth before. Commander Morgan took charge of Station Vigil, which was now officially revealed to the galaxy as a welcome center for alien visitors. Doctor returned to her research, working on new technologies that would be shared freely with all species. Admiral Daniel Hayes retired to a small house in the mountains of Colorado. He had spent his entire life preparing for war, and now he finally had a chance to rest. He spent his days reading, gardening, and watching the sun set over the peaks that he had dreamed about during the long years on Station Vigil. One morning, a young journalist came to interview him for a documentary about humanity's emergence onto the galactic stage. She asked him dozens of questions about the war, the negotiations, the new assembly, but her final question was the one that stayed with him. Admiral Hayes, how does it feel to have changed the galaxy? Hayes sat in his chair on the porch, looking out at the mountains he loved. He thought about the 3 centuries of silence, the fear that his ancestors must have felt when they realized what the council truly was. He thought about the men and women who had dedicated their lives to a secret they could never share, building ships and weapons in the hope that their children might live in freedom. We did not change anything, he said finally. We just finally decided to stop being quiet. The galaxy was always capable of being better. The council just never gave anyone a chance to try. We gave them that chance and they took it. That is not change. That is hope. The journalist smiled and thanked him for his time. After she left, Hayes remained on his porch, watching the sky slowly fill with stars. Somewhere up there, a new assembly was meeting for the first time. Somewhere up there, species that had been enemies for centuries were learning to work together. Somewhere up there, the galaxy was becoming something better than it had ever been before. And it had all started with a small blue planet that had the courage to stay silent until the time was right. Months later, a new phrase began spreading across the stars. Traders carried it from port to port. Diplomats whispered it in meeting halls. Former slaves taught it to their children as a reminder that even the weakest can become strong. Remember Earth, they said. They had the power to destroy and they chose to build. They had the right to take revenge and they chose to forgive. They could have ruled the galaxy and they chose to set it free. On the floor of the new Galactic Assembly, Price heard the phrase for the first time from a delegate who had once voted to enslave humanity. The alien said it with genuine respect, perhaps even gratitude. Remember Earth, he repeated. They taught us that power means nothing if you do not know when to use it, and more importantly, when not to. Price smiled and nodded. That is all we ever wanted, she said. Not to be feared, not to be, just to be remembered as a species that tried to do the right thing. Far away on a quiet porch in Colorado, Admiral Hayes finished his evening tea and went inside to sleep. For the first time in 50 years, he did not dream of war. He dreamed of stars, millions of them, shining with the light of hope. The silent planet had spoken, and the galaxy would never forget what they said.